So I think against most opposition, England can afford to have Rice, who's a fantastic 6, winning the ball, good technically, good passer, good driving the ball in straight lines, like I said, and then have maybe 2 more creative players in front of him. And I like the dynamic between these 3. I think it's balanced.
Hello and welcome back to the State of Play YouTube channel, back with another Lightboard explainer video. Today, I'm not alone, as you can see. I'm joined by Harry Brooks, who you've seen on our podcast. But Harry, why don't you introduce yourself to our YouTube audience?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm a professional football coach and analyst. So I train professional football players and academy players in the UK and abroad. And I've worked with some of the best players in the game and some of the best young stars coming up, trying to make an impression on the game.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on, mate. And
thank you.
Today we're going to be doing obviously something a bit unique with the Lightboard. I don't know if you've done anything like this before.
Never. This is pretty unique. I like it. It's
but
good.
Essentially, we're going to be doing a series of 3 or 4 videos, myself and Harry. And the first one, as you can see in the title, is all about how England might line up in Euro 2021. We thought we might do a how they would have lined up in Euro 2020, but it's always funner to speculate longer term. It's more likely that you're wrong as well. So what we're going to do, Harry's drawn his starting 11 on screen, presuming Gareth Southgate's still going to be manager. And then I'm going to throw in a few, alternatives there. There might be some guys that I think have definitely missed out on that. But I'd love you to run through your team here, Harry.
Yeah, well, I think it's also important to caveat that this won't be the team, obviously, because as you always see with seasons, there's new players that come through. There's players perhaps have a drop-off. If I'm looking at the projection of what I can see right now, this is what I can imagine being the team. There's players that Southgate knows and trusts. There's new players that are coming through that haven't even yet made their debut that I think could go on and break into the scene. So there's a mix there. So I think that England will line up with a 4. I mean, this looks like a 4-3-3, but a 4-1-4-1 potentially, whatever you want. But I guess the best place to start would be with the goalkeeper. Dean Henderson's had a fantastic year, and it's probably the first season in a while where I think someone has just about usurped Jordan Pickford as the England number 1. I think that Jordan Pickford, he's just a bit too erratic. And when you have a goalkeeper, it's okay to have goalkeepers that are on the forefront and aggressive in how they play and dominate the box, but the defence needs to trust them. They can't be nervous every time the keeper behind them receives the ball or as the ball's going to go in near them. I think Jordan Henderson has proven this year there's perhaps a bit of a safer pair of hands. It is his first full season in the Premier League. There's already talks about links to Chelsea, maybe even taking over David De Gea and Man United. I think that's maybe a bit too soon. I think a perfect move for him would be to spend another year at Sheffield United. But he's one of those keepers again. I think that you just feel a bit more safe with him. He's made mistakes, of course, like every goalkeeper does. But I just think you feel a bit more safe with Jordan Henderson in between the sticks compared to Pickford. What I would say you lose maybe is at Pickford's distribution, especially with the flat drives he does when the ball's in his hand, the long kicks. He's exceptional at that. But I think that as a goalkeeper, typical goalkeeper traits, Jordan Henderson perhaps is just that level above him, I would say. And I feel more secure with him in the team.
I agree with this one. I think it's quite close. It's probably the first time we've ever seen that the current England keeper could be ousted by more than one goalkeeper in the Premier League. So the guy that I was going to bring up, Nick Pope. He's had a phenomenal season between the sheets, between the sticks for Burnley, and he's been fantastic. I think he had one of the performances of the season at Anfield away. It was the first time that Liverpool haven't won there this season, which is credit to him. It's going to be pretty interesting to see which one of those 2 guys is going to be in between the sticks for England. Probably Henderson, but it won't be too far off, will it?
It won't be far off. The only thing I'll say about Pope, and this is what you say about centre-backs maybe, is that he has a lot more protection than other keepers. So, all of a sudden with Burnley, the team is generally 10 yards deeper, 5 yards deeper, much more compact, and a lot more protection in front of him. And obviously when your team is 5 yards higher, keepers maybe have a bit more to do to sweep. And I think obviously England will look to dominate most games. And all of a sudden there's going to be space in front of the keeper. If it is Pope, there'll be space in front of him that maybe he isn't quite used to. So maybe I just think the clashing styles there with how teams set up would maybe see Henderson. I'm not just to say that Sheffield United are completely forward thinking, but I think they're a bit more aggressive and play a little bit higher up.
A little bit more possession as well.
A little bit, yeah.
Right, let's go on to right back. I think this is probably the guy on the team sheet that won't be asked by anyone.
Yeah, maybe. Although to be fair, there are some incredible right backs coming through right now, or already come through. I mean, Wan-Bissaka is obviously a completely different style in terms of right back to Alexander-Arnold, but another fantastic player. I still think Kyle Walker's actually one of the best right backs in Europe. I really do believe that. You look at Tariq Lamptey at Brighton, who's made a great start, a superb ball carrier, Max Aarons, Reece James, so many of them. But Alexander-Arnold just provides something from right back that none of those guys do in the same way.
No one in the world.
Reece James is a very, very good cross of the ball, very good passer, attacks really good, but just not to the level of Alexander-Arnold. I haven't seen too many players that are as good technically at fullback as Alexander-Arnold is. There's talks of him being able to play midfield. I'm not too sure about that because he did play midfield a bit as the academy, which maybe gives him a bit of a shout, but it's very different. You know, the angles on the pitch as a right back where the whole game's in front of you and to the side of you compared to being in midfield and the game all being around you. It's asking completely different requirements. But I think, you know, you've got one of the best right backs in the world there that provides so much threat, and he's sensational at the early ball, the early cross as well from deep, which is exactly what that man up top there loves. So no, I think he's a shoo-in, to be honest.
And I think, honestly, next season we'll see you mentioned Reece James. I think he's probably going to be the guy that is going to come closest to Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka is the best one-on-one right back maybe in world football when it comes to defending. But you need a bit more from him going forward on the ball if you want to be in the England team. And I think if there's anyone who's going to push Trent as far as they can, which I think he's going to probably play every minute of the next two tournaments, Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think he's that good. I think he's, a lot of people throw the word around generational. He is a generational player because of the way he plays and how good he is. I think he's a shoo-in. But centre-backs, you've gone for someone who maybe not a lot of people will pick.
Yeah, and it's probably really unfair on Joe Gomez, who by all accounts is a fantastic centre-back. And I could have gone for other younger players like Tomori, potentially. But I just think White is someone that I think the next year you're going to see, people will see him really explode as a top centre-back. He's one of those players where you can't call him top draw until he's proven it. Yeah. But he just hasn't had the opportunity to prove it yet. I think he is definitely one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League. He just hasn't been able to prove it yet because he hasn't played in it. He's quite young. Now, I know that's a lot to say and there's a lot of things can happen and playing in the Premier League. It could expose him and maybe he isn't that good or isn't good enough for that. But if I had to make a prediction, I think next season White is going to be arguably the best English centre-back. He's technically outstanding, seriously outstanding on the ball. He can carry it, he can progress the ball, he can pass different varieties of passing, but he's a really, really good defender as well. And it's going to be really interesting seeing him play for Leeds next season, or whether a club pays a lot of money for him. He's definitely a player that I think a lot of clubs would maybe take a gamble on to pay upwards of £30 million for. A superb talent, really good player. Yeah,
I think I can't help but say Joe Gomez is going to be the man there. I think alongside Harry Maguire. I think you could even make an argument that Harry Maguire might not make it if he continues playing the way he does. The issue is that the way England have played in the past 12 months or 18 months under Gareth Southgate is with a slightly lower block, which does actually suit Harry Maguire. He's a guy that doesn't really like playing the high line, and that's how he's been exposed for United this season. But over at left back, this is an area that England seemingly had a load of strength in about 18 months ago with, Chilwell, Rose, Shaw, even Ashley Young deputising there. Yeah. A lot of really good players there. I mean, if we look at it now, Ashley Young looks to be at the periphery of his career over in Italy. Probably don't want to play him, especially if England aren't going to play five at the back. Danny Rose has fallen off a cliff footballing-wise. Luke Shaw, again, is regaining some momentum, but isn't quite at that level. So Chilwell seems to be the only candidate, doesn't he?
Well, I'll be completely honest. I originally went for Saka. I'm a huge fan of Saka, but today, I think it was revealed that he's taken the number 7 shirt at Arsenal, which I know you can't read too much into that, but with getting the number 7 shirt, where he's played recently, and obviously Kieran Tierney getting fitted into form, it looks like next season Saka might be used as a wide player or a centre mid / wide player hybrid, one of those kind of roles.
Especially with some of the forwards that could leave Arsenal.
Yeah, but I think actually Saka could go on to become one of the best left backs in the world. I really do believe that. He could also become, he's convinced me in recent weeks, to be fair, that he could also become an outstanding forward player. I previously had doubts maybe if he just lacked that assertiveness in front of goal, that kind of aura when he picks up the ball and you just know instantly there's a threat on goal. Yeah. But to be fair, I can see that coming into his game. So I can see him actually playing further ahead. So I think based on where it looks like Arsenal will play next season, again, the form of Kieran Tierney not being at left back, I think that it probably will be Chilwell as the left back. But Saka would be very unlucky to miss out on this team, to be honest.
And I mean, moving into midfield, probably the hardest one because of maybe lacking options, some players getting to a certain age. Talk me through this trio that you've picked.
Well, the first thing I want to say is I didn't want to leave out Henderson, but I just think that England are crying out for a more standard six, which Henderson can do, but it's not his greatest role. And I think Rice has been fantastic recently. My doubts over Rice before was he's a superb technician, but he can only kind of move in straight lines. He doesn't have much suppleness. He can't really twist and turn and bend. And if you're the lone six and you're receiving the ball from different angles and maybe receiving it under pressure at times, that can be an issue. But to be fair, he's really improved at this game. He'll never be silky able to move his body. And to be fair, Busquets couldn't really, he's quite upright as well. But that's another level of footballer, I'm afraid, Declan. But no, I can see Declan becoming an outstanding six. I don't think you should maybe have him and Henderson in the same midfield. I'm not sure there's enough ball progression there. But then again, when England play against, when they go higher up in the competition, and they play against maybe the likes of Germany, Spain, France, then Henderson will probably come in. But obviously Henderson, what is he? Is he 30 now?
30ish, yeah.
And it's going to be another season. So I think against most opposition, England can afford to have Rice, who's a fantastic six, winning the ball, good technically, good passer, good driving the ball in straight lines, like I said, and then have maybe two more creative players in front of him. And I like the dynamic between these three. I think it's balanced. So I think that Grealish is someone that is very comfortable receiving the ball deep and carrying it forward and passing forward. So he does a lot of his best work kind of in this area of the pitch, I think. Foden thrives in this kind of area of the pitch, tight areas. He can also come deeper, but to pick up the ball and play forward passes. But Foden really thrives in these kind of typical 10 areas. Very outstanding close control, beautiful vision, really intelligent footballer. And he's also got the eye for goal. He can, he's good at ghosting into the box, scores a variety of goals. I think there's a lovely balance between that trio. I mean,
Grealish playing in that kind of hybrid 8-10, right? Yeah. And he's actually probably defensively better than a lot of people give him credit for. The other guy that I can think of maybe is James Maddison. And I want you to go through him and what you think, because he's obviously declined. I've spelled his name wrong there, but it doesn't matter. He's obviously not done as well the second half of this season. Could he still make his mark?
Potentially. The reason why I went for Grealish instead of Maddison is I think Foden is best. I think Foden is one of those players that is just towards the end of moves. So he's the one with the final pass, maybe the final shot. Link up play as well, but link up in the really dangerous areas. Maddison is someone that also likes to play in those areas. Not so much in terms of ball progression, but he's the one that likes to get away the final shot, the final pass. So if you have Maddison and Foden, where's maybe that ball progression going to come from here? In that kind of area of the pitch. So I would say there's a better balance and dynamic between Grealish and Foden for that reason.
Right, now for the controversial bit up top, the three up top. For me, I don't know how you can leave out Jadon Sancho. So talk me through the front three here.
Purely because this is tried and tested, and the dynamic works outstandingly. And Sancho should and will still play a huge part in the squad, and I'm pretty sure I'll be left with egg in my face. But who else would you take out of these three? You can't take out Kane. You just can't. He's maybe top 5 number 9s in Europe. He's the England captain. And again, if you look at this team, there's actually a lot of inexperience in this team. Kane obviously isn't. And the dynamic that England have right now, where they're so threatening, is Kane drops a little bit deeper and you have these two that fly ahead of him. Sancho is someone that prefers to receive to feet, and he isn't an explosive player in terms of covering large amount of distances. Sancho excels receiving the ball in these areas, combining in tight areas, maybe helping retain the ball in the final third for a bit longer, receiving to feet. Now, when Kane drops, he wants these two going ahead of him. Sancho doesn't always do that. That's not his game. These two excel at that, and it's worked really, really well for England. And I can't say you can take out Sterling, another outstanding season. Got a really good relationship for England, these two. Apart from that one pass. We won't talk about that, but generally speaking, a really good relationship. And again, that experience for England. And I don't think you can underestimate how good this guy is and how good he's been. But again, Sancho and others will be a huge part of it. If there's a way you can fit all 4 of them in, potentially.
So that's what I was going to say. Could we see something like this? Or Sterling coming into that central area?
I would say maybe him more there and Sancho there, but there's rotations and stuff. Potentially, but then that's the issue. I would like to do that, but then the dynamic would be, well, then you need these two. There's going to be more of a double pivot here. Okay, well, who's going to be the double pivot? Does a Rice and Grealish double pivot work? It just doesn't seem it to me. Grealish holds onto the ball for a bit too long for that, maybe. I don't know. And I don't think a Rice Foden double pivot works. It leaves Rice maybe a bit too exposed.
Doesn't work to either of those strengths, does it?
Not really. So if England found a really good number 8, England have always had great number 8s. But if they found someone else who's more typically a number 8, and it's another topic for another discussion, maybe why there's not as many number 8s now. Then you could have maybe Rice and the number 8s, and then that front 4. But I just can't see how that dynamic works against. And again, I think this team, looking at this team. You can kind of play most systems against some of the weaker international sides, but the Euros you can't really get away with that. And the higher up you go in the competition, you can't have a Rice and Grealish double pivot. I don't think. It'll be a big risk. So begrudgingly, Sancho would be the one to miss out. Not through any fault of his own. It's just the dynamic of this side that's tried and tested, and that we know that works and can be a big threat for England.
Right. Before we wrap up, give us maybe 2 or 3 players that you think are wild cards that could maybe come into this squad and maybe play a bigger part than people think. I mean, for one, he's not really a wild card anymore, but Mason Greenwood looks like he's playing really, really well at the moment.
Yep.
Any others that you can think of?
Hudson-Odoi.
Okay.
He's the best academy player I've ever seen at academy level. Yep. Hasn't quite transferred to first team football yet. Got the worst injury you can get as a footballer, the Achilles. So I really, really hope that there's still a pathway for him at Chelsea. I know they look like they're signing everyone, and hopefully his injury hasn't, killed too much of that explosiveness. Hudson-Odoi, Greenwood, and Saka definitely will be in the squad. Outstanding young talent. There's England has a lot of talent coming through. They perhaps still lack a bit of balance in some areas. I mean, is that a defence that would win a European Championships? Hard to say. I'm not too sure. And even is the midfield dynamic good enough yet? I mean, you look at France's midfield, but in the forward areas, I mean, my goodness. And even if you want to kind of count Foden as a forwardish kind of player, it's as good as anyone. In anyone in my lifetime. I would honestly go that far because, think of all the greats. Maybe Brazil could maybe have an argument with that. Some of the great Brazilians, but in my lifetime, there's not too many collection as a whole. I'm not just talking about individuals. Then obviously, there have been better individuals, but the amount of options, there's not too many I can think of in my lifetime that matches the England forward line that's playing at the moment and looks like it's going to come through.
Right, well, thank you very much for joining me in this video, Harry. Where can people find out more about you?
People always ask me this. I never ever know my actual Twitter. I think it's HB_head coach.
HB_head coach. We'll put it down on the video as
Cheers,
well.
mate.
But thank you guys all for watching. If you guys did enjoy that, please do leave a like down below. If you folks aren't subscribed to our channel yet, please do click that subscribe button. And if you're already subscribed, please click the notification button. You'll be notified every time we release new content. And if you don't want to see my face, then that's fine. Head over to our podcast, State of Play podcast, on all your favourite podcast providers. We'll link it in the description below. And thank you very much for watching.